بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، نحمده ونشكره على هدايته، ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is an honor to be invited after many years. Maulana was kind enough to remind me with a picture of many years ago, I think 8 or 9 years ago, for Arba'in program at Imam Ali's mosque. And Alhamdulillah, I see the younger ones that they were teenagers or just about adolescents, mashallah, grown, they have their own family. And the older ones, like myself, we are getting older and older. Tonight and tomorrow night, we are going to speak about a unique personality in Islam that I must confess it's very hard to speak about. When you have a complex character, to try to reduce it into a small lecture for 2 nights, maximum half an hour, 45 minutes. One wonders what can we cover within these 2 nights. So I have decided to focus tonight primarily on the spirituality and the unique character of Fatimiyah al-Zahra salamallahu alayha. And tomorrow night, I will focus on the concept of a struggle, jihad, and activism that makes her so unique, in addition to being the part member of Ahlul Bayt. If we were to remove the activism and the jihad and the struggle, standing up to injustice for the sake of justice from the character of Fatimah al-Zahra, a gaping hole would appear that the legacy of Fatimah al-Zahra is no longer something that becomes relevant to our time. I want to point out before I start with something we Shias in general, the Twelvers in particular, we suffer from some shortcoming when it comes to addressing or at least focusing on the life of our Imams. We fall short on the narratives that we construct. We become selective about the number of Imams that we focus upon at the expense of a number of others. Let me give you an example. We tend to know little bit anecdotal about the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salam. Hardly anything about life of Imam Hassan. Then we pay huge amount of attention to life of Imam Hussein. We present Imam Zain al-Abidin in a very kind of marginal. If you want to talk about Zain al-Abidin, it's the Sikh Imam that survived Karbala and then went to Medina and stayed there until the end of his life. Little bit about Muhammad al-Baqir and Ja'far al-Sadiq, because they are the founders of the Shia school of theology, we naturally tend to speak a little bit about them. Imam Musa al-Kadhim Bab al-Hawa'ij, that's it. Somebody who suffered imprisonment and so on, and as if the mausoleum over there is primarily Imam was buried for us to go and ask for a list of questions and demands to be provided. Those of you who come from Iran, huge amount of attention is given to Imam Rida salawatullah salamu alayhi. But after Imam Rida, what do we know about Imam al-Jawad, Imam al-Hadi, Imam al-Askari? Yes, little bit about the living Imam, but the other Imams that their role were major roles in transitioning the Muslim community and preparing them to get ready for the time where the presence of the Imam within the community is no longer accessible and no longer possible. How did the transition to take place? It was the role of the Imams, particularly Imam Hassan al-Askari, and what he did in preparing the ground. Although we see traces of it even from the Imam Sajjad, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, that prepares the ground, or we can go even before it. So one thing that we really need to pay attention to is that Ayatollah Khamenei many years ago wrote a book regarding, he used the metaphor of a reality of a 250 years. He said, if you really want to understand, and I believe if we reflect on what he said as a reality, he said to avoid this conflict that we have within the Shia community, whether Imam Hassan was right in signing a peace treaty with Muawiyah, or whether Imam Hussein was right in standing up to Yazid. What Imam Zain al-Abidin did, and everybody else, look at the concept of Imamah as a single reality that was born or came to the presence after the demise of the Holy Prophet and lasted for 250 years. This reality had to deal with what we call a life which is a roller coaster, react to the policies, the strategies of the tyrants of the day, whether it was Bani Umayyah or Bani al-Abbas. If you think about ourselves, one individual in our life, we have many strategies to respond and react to the circumstances and that we have to deal with and face with. As a student, we react. When we become, we have a job, we react. When we have a family, we react. In our family, if we have crisis, we have to deal with differently. So think of the Imamah as a single reality that exists, came to reality after the demise of the Holy Prophet and continued until the occultation. Shaykh Sadr has, Marhum Shaykh Sadr Muhammad Baqir Sadr has again something similar to this. There is a book that says that many Imams, singularity of the goals, but multiplicity of a strategy. That's the same kind of concept. Not only we don't pay attention to the Imams the way we should, even with the Imams that we have to a degree some knowledge, in the conflicting world of narratives that we have to deal with, we have no narrative to compete with the others. And this is seen in our political, theological, cultural, religious, and so on. There is a conflicting and competing and contesting world that if we don't construct the necessary narrative to explain who we are, what is the role of the Imams, and what these Imams stood for, the others who don't like the Imams, they create their own narrative and with publicity, we fall behind. So these are extremely critical that we really need to pay attention. I'll give you two examples. Marhum Sheikh Ahmed Waeli, the famous speaker in Iraq or the Arab world, narrates a story. He said, I was in Arafah one day and I was offering my prayer and I had my turba in front of me. Somebody became a little bit curious and waited for me to finish the prayer and came to me and he said, what is this in front of you? And what madhab are you following? He said, well, I follow madhab al-Ja'fari and this earth piece of material that we use because we believe we cannot prostrate on synthetic material. It has to be on earthly material. Ja'fari said, I have read something about Abu Ja'far Mansur al-Abbasi. He said, I tried to explain to him, this has nothing to do with Mansur al-Abbasi. This is Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, the great grandson of the Holy Prophet. He said, I've never heard of it. So when I explained to him regarding who he is, he's descendant of the Holy Prophet, he said, Ya Shaykh, listen to this. Ya Shaykh, it is your fault. But that you do not provide the necessary information. He was coming from Senegal. For us in Senegal to be able to understand who Ja'far ibn Muhammad was and what is Madhab al-Ja'fari. Your fault. That is what I'm talking about. The narrative and we do not construct, at least in this competing world. You just go on the internet and see how much about this or that and the others, but nothing about Imam, very rarely anything about Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. It's our responsibility, the youth responsibility, the parents' responsibility. So this is something that we, inshallah, we talk about probably tomorrow night. Going back to the spirituality and unique position of Fatimah al-Zahra salamullah alayha. Fatimah al-Zahra, if we go back to the Quran mentions the role of a number of women, both in the positive and in the negative. Mary stands out as a symbol of spirituality. Asiya stands out as a symbol of resistance. Then the wives of Nuh and Lut stand up as a symbol of disobedience. Sarah stands up as a symbol of purity. Hajar as a mother of the Prophet Ismail, and so on. When it comes to the Prophet's immediate family, which are the three major figures, Khadija, Fatima, and Zainab salamullah alayha, there is only one surah in the Holy Quran clearly deals with the life of Fatima al-Zahra. Although the life of Fatima al-Zahra has included in a number of other verses, but in a collective rather than in just specifically about Fatima al-Zahra. And that is Surah Al-Kawthar. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. Which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by revealing this, I believe it's chapter 108 in Quran, by revealing this, literally clashes and rejects and negates the Jahiliyyah mindset that believed a person will become abtar, has no family to remind him in the future, no posterity, if they don't have a son. When the last son of the Holy Prophet died, people began calling him abtar. You have no son, you have nobody to remind you. The girls and women in their mindset had no importance, no significance. Quran rejects this concept. And the concept of Kawthar in this chapter, Inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar, commentators have said that it could be abundance, or it could be in reference to a river in paradise, which is called Kawthar. If you have looked at the values of Ahlul Bayt, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and it says that you will come, Fatima will stand on the river of Kawthar, or on the Hawd of Kawthar, or Ali stands, or any members of the families would stand over there. So Kawthar could be in reference to that, but it could be reference to purified descendants of the Prophet through his daughter, Fatimah al-Zahra. These people who criticize that you are not going to get to have descendant, look, the abundance of descendant that came through Fatimah al-Zahra and the number of imams and through them. Fatima is also included in a number of other verses. Number one, the verse of purification, Ayat al-Tathir. Ahzab 33, إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided to purify you. And there is a huge debate between both schools of theology, Shias and Sunnis, regarding who is meant by this Ahlul Bayt that is mentioned. I don't want to get into the debate. This debate has already passé, as they say, and it's been settled many centuries ago by the ahadith that you have from Ahlul Bayt themselves. Then we have the ayah of Mubahala, Al Imran 61, when the story of Christians from Najran, which is in Yemen, they decided to come to Medina and challenge the Holy Prophet about the divinity of Jesus and the fact that Christianity is correct, and there is the terminality of the prophecy after, there is no prophet after Jesus, and the Holy Prophet discussed the issue and debated it with them, but they would not accept. The Holy Prophet came up with this notion of mubahala. He said, okay, if you insist that you are right and I'm wrong, let us tomorrow morning come and we stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we ask Allah, Lord, to decide who is right and who is wrong, and the wrong one will be cursed. This verse was فَمَنْ حَاجَّكَ فِيهِ, those who object or challenge you or they don't accept you. مِنْ بَعْدَ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ, after what you have given them as far as knowledge. فَقُلْ, tell them, تَعَالَوْا نَدْعُ أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ, bring our children and your children. وَنِسَاءَنَا وَنِسَاءَكُمْ وَأَنفُسَنَا وَأَنفُسَكُمْ ثُمَّ نَبْتَهِلْ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to curse the person who is lying. Next day, they say the Archbishop of Yemen came in pomp and ceremony and sat in front of everybody else and all the bishops around him, waiting for the Holy Prophet to come. Suddenly, he realized that Holy Prophet is walking, and behind him there are 4 people, a man and a woman and 2 children. He asked, who are these? He said, they told him that the man behind him is his cousin as well as his son-in-law. The female is his daughter, his only daughter, and the mother of the 2 children, and the 2 children are his grandchildren. He said, I'm not going to go through mubahala. Why not? If he wasn't sure of himself that he is going to win, he would not, let's use a different language, he would not bet on the life of his closest members of the family and put them on the stake. We accept jizya and we pay jizya and we go back. So Fatima al-Zahra, as the only Nisa, the only female that is included within the family of Ahlul Bayt, is mentioned. Then there is another one, and a third ayah, مودة في القربى قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى. I'm not asking you for any reward. What I'm asking you is to be compassionate, respectful, caring about my family. And nicely they did after the demise of the Holy Prophet. Somebody said, if the Ummah would have received a command by the Holy Prophet that be unjust, harsh, and violent towards my family, they wouldn't have done worse what they did to the family of the Holy Prophet. So this Mawaddat fil Qurba, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq narrates it, and he says exactly who these people are. Surah Al-Insan, the famous story about Amir al-Mu'mineen, Fatimah al-Zahra, and Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, they were fasting, and for 3 nights, every time a piece of bread that they were supposed to be divided between the family, every time they wanted to fast, to break their fast, some poor people or a stranger or somebody came to the door and asked to be given something. And they gave him that piece of bread that they had to break the fast. After 3 nights of just breaking with water, breaking their fast with water, this verse was revealed. It's 6 or 7 verses that comes from number 8 in Surah Al-Insan until I think 13 or 14. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. Nobody can challenge it and say that this is not about Ahlul Bayt, because everyone agrees that this is in the context of this incident. So the role of Fatimah al-Zahra, in the spiritual sense, we have a number of verses on a macro kind of level and specifically about her life. Unfortunately, when we come beyond this, when we come to detailed biographical information, they are scarce. And it's for 2 reasons. Number one, the male chauvinistic approach to history that marginalized women completely, and they really did not consider anything that women did worthy of recording or documentation. But with the case of Fatimah al-Zahra salamullah alayha, there is much more cynical reason, because historians, once they began, after many decades, began to write history, there was the notion of jihad of Fatima and resistance of Fatima and the challenge to the newly established order of Abu Bakr that usurped the power was enough for her to be excluded from anything else. Otherwise, how can we explain Sahih Bukhari with all the ahadith that they have collected? Huge number of fabricated ahadith exist. Nearly 4,000 to 5,000 ahadith from Abu Hurairah, only 9 hadith from Fatimah al-Zahra. 9 hadith from the daughter of the Holy Prophet that was with him from the beginning of her life until the end of her life. 9 hadith. There was a clear determination that Ali has to be excluded because of the hate that they had for what he did during Battle of Badr and Battle of Uhud that killed the major champions of Quraysh and Jahiliyyah. And Fatima had to be excluded because of that challenge to the established order and the standing up to injustice. And the famous khutbah of Fadakiyah that you really need to spend some time and reading it. Famous khutbah of Fadakiyah that challenges the newly established system or regime that now they have organized themselves in Medina for the first time. After the demise of the Holy Prophet and the whole strategy of grabbing power, etc., after Saqifa, it was quite clear that the new system is determined to marginalize Ahlul Bayt in any shape or form that possible. They had no respect for Fatima al-Zahra. While Ahlul Bayt are sitting inside the house trying to prepare the burial, these people sit in Saqifa and try to organize so-called the succession to the Holy Prophet. There are a number of good books about this. A Christian minister once said, I really find it difficult. He's from Lebanon. I really find it difficult to accept that if Jesus was not crucified and ascended to heaven, his body was laying in the house, any Christian would have left the body and gone and sat and talked about debating about power politics and organizing themselves. But yet, it happened in the history of Islam. So what we really need to understand the character of Fatima, as Shariati once said, Fatima is Fatima. He said in a book that short book that he wrote about Fatima al-Zahra, he said, I reflected and contemplated to find out what to say about Fatima al-Zahra salamullah alayha that clearly depicts who the character is. Call her the daughter of the Holy Prophet, it doesn't bring Fatima out. Call her the wife of Amir al-Mu'mineen, still is not Fatima. Call her the mother of the Imams, still is not. So the only thing that I can say is Fatima. Fatima is Fatima. You really need to understand Fatima. And it becomes clear through what we call the resistance, the challenge. When she stands in front of the male establishment that Abu Bakr, Umar, and a number of others are sitting over there, she creates a space that the space that you are not prepared to share your space, puts a curtain in front of herself and separates herself, the space that she is in, from the space that they are in. That space does not represent my space. And then she starts delivering the sermon. It's a unique sermon that whenever you get a chance, please spend reading it. And there are now a huge number of translations available for this sermon, particularly the part that focuses on the concept of imamah. Fatima al-Zahra gave her life for Nabuwwah and imamah. She understood the true meaning of imamah, the role of imamah in survival of the ummah, and what will happen if imamah is marginalized and Ahlul Bayt is marginalized. This is something that inshallah tomorrow night we will present and discuss. I would like to stop here in case you have questions, then we entertain those questions. Then you have the citation of Majlis, I believe Maulana has already mentioned it. So thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One thing before the questions start, we have two Fatimiyahs. This is something that you really need to be mindful, because sometimes people ask, why is it that we have this or the other? There are because the time of death and the martyrdom of Fatima al-Zahra is not recorded clearly in history, and that there is a reason for it. That act itself is a political act. There are a number of ahadith regarding her death. The most famous established within the Shia scholars is 75 days or 95 days after the demise of the Holy Prophet. If we take the 75 days, it brings it to 13, 14, 15th of Jamadi al-Awwal. And if we take 95 days, it would take it to 3rd, 4th, 5th of Jamadi al-Thani. These are the two Fatimiyahs, Fatimiyah the first and Fatimiyah the second, based on the date which is not clearly specified in the history. Sister, you had a question.